such a simple word combination can make the difference between entanglement in material existence and absorption in the topmost levels of pure love. How can that be? When we look at the age of Kali, when we look at the current situation all around us in this current age of darkness, we see complexity everywhere, intricacy, although completely unnecessary. Just see, as the years have gone by, in the past 10 or 20 years, how things have become so complicated and stressful. The more material advancement there is, the more complicated life becomes, in case you haven't noticed. So people start to define progress as the increase in material complexity because they've lost sight of the beauty of simplicity. How much complexity can the human brain take? People are actually breaking apart. They can't handle the intricacies of existence the way it's lived these days. So therefore, amidst all these complexities and intricacies, physical, mental, environmental, political, social, the list never seems to come to an end. Naturally, people wonder, and you're telling me just to chant Hare Krishna? Sometimes even our own practitioners, they wonder, really? Just chant Hare Krishna year after year? Is it really that simple? And of course, those who are completely trapped within the material energy, they can't at all conceive that simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, you can set loose a total renovation in your life from top to bottom. How can that be? The Bhakti Yoga experience is an experiential. It's experiential. That any real experience means you experience it. It's not simply that you believe in it. So the quickest way to verify our spiritual identity is chanting Hare Krishna, because you get direct perception of how you're not related to the material energy. Direct perception of how you're related to the spiritual energy. So that first step has to be there if you're going to have real spirituality. We can talk about morality. Morality is good. It's the necessary foundation. But we must go beyond morality in that we understand where morality is meant to take us. It's meant to provide the foundation for proper human dealings so that you can then, through spiritual techniques, you can see all living entities, not just the human beings, but all living entities as parts of Krishna. So is this a sectarian statement? Persons might say, why does everyone have to be a part of Krishna? Well then, in order to deal with such a statement that seeing all living entities as part of Krishna, we have to know about Krishna. If I say that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you say no, then you must present a reason. Why not? You must have some knowledge. Why not? But then, generally, if you ask someone, why did you say no? Not Krishna. Somebody say, well, someone else is God. But saying that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not negate other visions of the Supreme. This is what people are always accustomed to. It's one thing or the other. They can't see the whole picture. By saying Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you're not negating other visions of the Supreme. But you probably, if you have knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, can see how all these different perspectives fit into the one absolute truth. That's why Srila Prabhupada so confidently says that anyone who knows what is God, they'll easily see how Krishna fits. But the problem is people don't know fully what is God, and therefore they see all these unnecessary splits and divisions. In one sense, you can't blame them. It's the nature of this age of quarrel. People have to have something to fight about. So they always like to pit one thing against another. Well, if this is true, then that can't be true. So you say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, I say that's a fanatical statement. Well, do you understand what is meant by Krishna? If you actually understand what is meant by Krishna, you'll see how everything fits together. People today are very afraid of sectarianism. They're afraid of anything that resembles like the Taliban or Iran or something like that. They're afraid. Most people are. People who are not religious fundamentalists are afraid of religious fundamentalists. Because people who are religious fundamentalists, they feel fine. Because they are right and everyone else is just totally out of it. So is that the Krishna conscious position? That everyone is totally out of it? No. The Krishna Bhakta can see gradations. Not just black or white, but gradations of grays. The Krishna Bhakta can see how all spiritual endeavors are part of the complete whole, and you get different attainments according to different spiritual endeavors. Some people are driving on the freeway very fast to get to the ultimate destination. Others are driving very slow. Some get off at an exit and just do other things for a while. Some are even going the other way. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that everyone follows his path in all respects. So people often will say that, just see, no matter what you do, you're on the path. So it's true. Everyone's on the freeway, but some are going forward, some are going backwards, some have broken down on the side, but everyone's on the freeway. The whole point of being on the freeway is to get to the destination. So we have to see, what is that destination? Then we can decide who is being fanatical, who is being sectarian, and who is not. Just like tomorrow, I'm going up north to the Santa Barbara area. So, if I ask you for directions, and you take you say, well, you have to go on the highway along the coast once you get out of Los Angeles. Why? Why are you being sectarian? Well, that's the way. Fanaticism. Are you saying that's the only way? Who would protest like that? And what can you say if someone would protest like that? Well, you could drive out to St. Louis and then come back down through Seattle. And okay, that's another way. You probably will never get to your destination because you'll be so tired you'll probably give up. So in other words, you would not accept that statement because you have comprehensive knowledge of the driving situation. So how can we get comprehensive knowledge of the Supreme? We need to get that knowledge, and then we can talk. The best thing for the world right now is if all spiritual seekers and religious followers would get together and discuss what is the most comprehensive understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Of course, first they have to decide what is the identity, the real identity of the human being. I always point out, how many temples or churches or synagogues or mosques do you go to? And you walk in the door on a Saturday or a Sunday, and do you hear a clear presentation that you are not the body, you're not the mind, you're a spirit soul? Without understanding those things, there's no question of genuine spirituality. Usually, because persons they're attached to their bodies and minds because they don't know anything else, they think that the body is kind of spiritual in its own way, that we are both spirit and matter. And therefore, we should have both spiritual endeavors and material pleasure at the same time. Now, if we actually scientifically understand our identity, then we'll be able to understand clearly that what is meant for the body and mind does not actually nourish the spirit soul. You, of course, have to take care of your body and mind. So many workshops and retreats, when I explain this point, immediately someone raises their hand. So you're saying we should neglect the body? I said, no, I just said we're not the body. No, just as soon as you in any way minimize the importance of the material covering, someone thinks that you have said, just neglect it all. Because I guess it's a touchy issue in more ways than one. What do you mean? We're not the body. Are you trying to say that all my endeavors on the material platform are useless? No, you have to take care of the body. But to think that your core being will be satisfied by material activities, no, that is a great mistake. But people are so attached because they don't know anything else. They're so attached to this bodily conception of life, and one has to be compassionate and sympathetic because nothing else is known. Therefore, they get very uncomfortable when it's like you're taking, a baby's favorite toy away, and the baby starts screaming. It becomes like that. So often I give this example that if I'm sick, the body is sick, I go to a doctor, and the doctor, he's able to make some adjustment. Just like today, I had a particular ailment. I asked Shastrikrit to go to the Whole Foods market and get me some cranberry capsules. So he brought them back, and as soon as I started taking the cranberry capsules, my situation was improving. So naturally, I'm grateful. Just like if I went to the doctor and the doctor, he made some beneficial adjustments, I would be grateful. I wouldn't walk out of his office. Well, doctor, anyway, what does it matter? We're not the body. So. But at the same time, it's true, we're not the body. So I would probably say that thank you for helping my body, but I would never think that in any way my problems in life have been solved. That's the difference. My real problems in life aren't about the body and mind. My real problems in life are about my forgotten identity as spirit soul, part of the Supreme Soul. So that real problem is what Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, addresses. But once again, because people are so attached to bodily existence and mental existence, if they're a bit more refined, that anything that in any way sounds like it's minimizing the material focus, they get upset. Are you saying that? Another point that's raised. Well, it may be true what you're saying, that we should all attain spiritual realization and we should live a more spiritual life. But let's face the facts. If everyone lived like you, how could the practical world... Oh, they say like that. So then you have to reassure people, don't worry, it's not going to happen. Not everyone is going to be sane. It's just not going to happen. And then you ask them, what's your occupation, by the way? You ask Rajavijaya, what is your occupation?
Software engineering.
If everyone in the world were a software engineer, what would the world be like? You would say, well, not everyone in the world is going to be a software engineer. But they have a role to play. So similarly, not everyone in the world is going to be a Krishna Bhakta, but the devotee of Krishna has a very important role to play. It's like you're saying, there should only be heads and not the rest of the body. Or there should only be toes, but not the head. Every body needs a head on it. But there are also other parts of the body are necessary too. It's just that without having a head on the body, not much of what you do is going to be successful. So, my point is, we need comprehensive understanding of what is God. And then we can talk about who's being sectarian and who's being this and who's being that. But without that comprehensive understanding, what is the use of so many accusations or paranoias? We have to know what is what. Just like for someone who knows the way to Santa Barbara, there's no controversy. For someone who knows the topography of California, the road system, they have the overview, the comprehensive vision. So there's no controversy with them. They're not upset. How can you say that you should go to Santa Barbara along the coast? There's another way. All right. Do the other way. But go to St. Louis first and then go up to Seattle, come down. You'll spend a lot of money on gas. You'll be quite tired driving. So let's once again consider the chanting of Hare Krishna. For the Bhakti Yoga practitioner, we have a lifetime career of trying to hear the Hare Krishna mantra. It's always on our mind, and that's good. Those of you who are seriously chanting, you know the effort to chant is always on your mind. Have a good time watching the devotees torture themselves trying to hear. Their minds are so wild, and they keep trying to hear the Hare Krishna mantra because that's what they're supposed to do. Now, Krishna is not a sadist. Sometimes we react like that. Oh, bhakti is so attractive. sounds so good. The philosophy makes so much sense. It's so complete. But who can ever do it? Why has Krishna tortured us in this way? He's dangling in front of our nose something that's so attractive, but at the same time it can't be achieved, right? I know it can't be achieved, you're right. That depends on whom you associate with. Oh, it can't be done yet. It's just general personal nature that if someone is always thinking, how can I please you better? How can I improve my service to you better? You'll be soft-hearted toward that person. Can we use that as an example? We have sort of recently. Suppose your husband told you, you've been married 22 years? 21. For 21 years, I'm just trying to hear what you say and focus on your every word. How would you feel? Yeah, I'm sure you would. Well, yeah, this is what life is about. You'd be soft-hearted to hear that someone was endeavoring to hear you carefully and to pay attention carefully. So why is it then we think Krishna is not aware of our efforts, Krishna doesn't care, and we're just struggling with this Hare Krishna mantra, our minds are so wild, our days are so busy. No, Krishna is aware of our efforts. We should also know that it is the job of the illusory energy to discourage spiritual advancement. The nature of this world, material world, is impediment. There's always this impediment to your spiritual life or that impediment. So a devotee has to know how to thrive in an atmosphere where there are impediments. You just can't sit around and wait for your body and mind to just give you no resistance for chanting Hare Krishna. We have to learn how to thrive in an atmosphere of impediments and barriers, because that's what material existence is. It's meant to sidetrack you, bewilder you. Now you might say, well, why in the world would there be such a setup? The setup is there because we wanted to disconnect ourselves from the Supreme Source. We wanted to disconnect ourselves from Krishna. That actually can never happen. It's impossible for that to happen. So, in a dream, it happens. A nightmare. In the nightmare, we encounter so many trying situations, frustrating situations, so many hopes that later disappoint us. That's all part of the nightmare. But actually, we've never left Krishna. We're just lost in a dream in which we don't perceive the presence of Krishna anywhere. But if we wake up from that nightmare, we'll find that we've always been, and we always are with Krishna. So spiritual perfection is simply a process of waking up from the dream and realizing you have been with Krishna all along. But back to the comprehensiveness of genuine spiritual science. Armed with genuine spiritual science, you can see how all the spiritual paths harmonize. But you can't do that unless you know what is the ultimate purpose. That's the only way you can dare to say, well, Sooner or later, all paths are leading to the same goal. What is that goal? If we don't know what that goal is, how can we see harmony? Once we understand the goal of all spiritual practices, the goal of all spiritual knowledge, is love of God, then we can start to inquire, what are the different levels of intensity of that love? And what is it about the Supreme that attracts us? Because there can't be love without attraction. Those of you who are married can remember your first days of courting and then the wedding. There was attraction in the air. It was so thick you could cut it with a knife. You felt attracted. Yes, you can remember. The qualities of the person, the activities of the person, the form before time takes its toll. These things you were attracted to. So then, how can there be love of God without understanding the attractiveness of the Supreme? Love means attraction. I often explain when people say God is love, what they really mean is that God is all attractive. So how is God all attractive? So we should have a world conference on what is the deepest possible understanding of God. Rather than just accusing this one of being fanatical, that one of being a fundamentalist, let us come together and put all the knowledge on the table and try to understand what is the topmost vision of the all-attractiveness of God. Wouldn't that be fair?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so easy to say, oh, you're a sectarian. Why? Because you said Krishna. Let us see how all the different visions of the Supreme Absolute Truth fit together. Some people see the impersonal. Well, let's see how that fits in with everything. So once again, anyone who knows actually what is God, they'll have no problems understanding Krishna. But people do not know. Yet they want to argue. So what the world is so drastically missing is comprehensive understanding of our own identity and the identity of the Supreme. So people just give these constant knee-jerk reactions. Oh, no, you are wrong. Your God is wrong. Our God is right. You don't believe in our God, you must die. Let us come together and try to understand what is the deepest possible realization of the Supreme that we can have. But it's very difficult to do that because people can't even understand what is their own identity. So this is the great gift of Krishna Bhakti, loving devotional service to Krishna. You can see yourself and you can see the Supreme simultaneously. Just like when the sun rises in the morning, not only do you see the sun, but you also see yourself. It all happens together. And you can see your relationship between yourself and the sun. You're getting warmth from the sun, you're getting light. vitamin D is being produced in your body and stored. This is in relationship to the sun. So once again, let's go back to our original point. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, these three words, Hare Krishna Rama, the depths of enlightenment can be obtained. Many persons have a hard time understanding this. And sometimes even our own bhakti practitioners, they become bewildered. Oh, it just can't be so simple like that. Yes, chanting Hare Krishna is simple, but it requires a proper lifestyle. The Hare Krishna mantra is like a jewel, a diamond, and the diamond needs a proper setting, like when you have a diamond ring. The diamond sits in a proper setting on the ring. So the proper setting for the jewel of the Hare Krishna mantra is lifestyle. So the bhakti yogi, the devotee, is always trying to sort out his or her lifestyle, refine it, make it more potent, so that the Hare Krishna mantra can more efficiently, shall we say, reveal its benefits. So this daily struggle to hear the Hare Krishna mantra is the precursor. It's the beginning phase to love. Just trying to listen. Don't underestimate that importance. Just like in a relationship, even an ordinary relationship, just the fact that someone's trying to listen to you, it touches your heart. Like I was using the example of Surapal and Krishnamurti. So if Surapal says to his wife, I'm just trying to hear what you say. I'm really trying. I'm trying to hear what you say. That statement alone would make the person, well, this is a worthwhile relationship. It's trying. So every day when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we want to, don't feel bad that you're trying. Whatever you do, in spite of barriers that come up in your mind, trash that comes up in your mind, don't slacken your chanting. You see, it's a trick of illusory energy to discourage you. That, okay, I'm chanting and, ooh, what's this going on in my mind? I can't believe it. And here I am chanting Hare Krishna. What's the point? What's the use? I might as well just do something else. Or I won't take the chanting so seriously. We don't say that, but sometimes I notice unconsciously this is what happens. I mean, when I chant, I just become aware of so many impurities in my consciousness. Things come up in my mind that shock me. Here I am at the same time chanting Hare Krishna. Maybe I should just put it aside. Or I know I can't put it aside because I promised to chant at least 16 rounds. That's what a devotee is supposed to do. So I can't put it aside. But maybe I'll just do it mechanically and just get through it as quick as possible, in a mindless way as possible. Unconsciously, I notice we show our frustration in chanting Hare Krishna in that way. I'll just do it. I'll just chant and just get out of the way. Like in a relationship, in a marriage, where all right, I'll just do whatever she says, just to get some peace around the house. I know it never happens. I understand. So sometimes we treat the Hare Krishna mantra like that. I'll just chant. just tell you because you have to do it, otherwise devotees say you're Maya. Right. Just hurry up and get it out of the way so I can turn on the TV. When I turn on the TV, I can just lose myself in television. And then there's peace. No, we should be practical and analytical about the impediments that arise in our mind when we're trying to chant Hare Krishna. And the last thing we should do is slacken our chanting. We should actually go the opposite direction, of course. We should try to increase the quality of our chanting, so that each devotee can have the experience of a personal victory in chanting. That's very important. Every devotee needs to have the experience that my mind was raging, wild things were coming up in my mind, and I just chanted Hare Krishna and saw my way through it. It's a great experience. And then you really become powerful by Krishna's grace because you have realization. In the worst of times, I can just chant Hare Krishna and I'll make spiritual advancement. So every devotee needs that experience. It reminds me of, I saw a documentary of Hurricane Katrina hitting New Orleans. And the whole city, as you know, for the most part was evacuated. But then they had these army guys who were staying behind right on the beach. And they were in a special bunker, like a special concrete little house. And so they just stayed in there and were recording on their instruments the power of the hurricane. So they had cameras, and you could see on the film recorded that what was just going on right all around their little concrete house, their concrete fort. Oh, just trees were flying through the air, so much water, winds. It was just wild, but they were inside that concrete fortification. They had their own oxygen supply, they had their own water, they had their own food. So they were safe. And when the storm died down, they came out. So similarly, we have to know how to take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra in that way. Because our minds are raging, especially at this particular time in Kali Yuga. This particular time in the age of darkness, our minds are raging. It's shocking. And it's embarrassing for us to admit that. But you see, you cannot do hand-to-hand combat with your own mind. Don't think you're so strong. Okay, mind, I'm going to wrestle with you. I'll show you who's in charge. It doesn't work. You have to take shelter of the holy name of Krishna. It's the only way the mind becomes subdued. We are powerless without the Hare Krishna mantra. This is a great realization. We are powerless. Because generally we think, well, I'm a nice person. I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. I've got good qualities. I had a good family raising, good family background, and good education. I'm not a ruffian. And I know there's a few things in me that have to be fixed, but basically I'm a nice person. And then when you try to focus your mind on chanting Hare Krishna, you're face to face with the real person that you don't want to see. The real person you are that you don't want to see. It's humiliating. So many material desires come up, material memories from the past. You wonder, when is it going to end? Whatever you do, do not slacken your chanting. Don't decrease it. In fact, increase it. To be in a situation where you can see clearly, you have no other shelter but the Hare Krishna mantra. It's a very fortunate position. Sometimes it doesn't happen to devotees until they're sick, or they almost die, or they're in some kind of abnormal emergency situation, and all I can do is chant Hare Krishna. But why wait until circumstances force us? If we can realize that even right now, when we think we're in a good situation, a good material situation, even right now, we only have the shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra. That's it. The more we take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra as our conscious lifestyle goal, the more we'll make solid spiritual advances, because we'll have realization. So every devotee owes it to himself, herself, to have that experience that you can make it through the storm by chanting Hare Krishna. But the usual tendency, as I said, is to slacken the chanting because you're embarrassed. Oh, this stuff is coming in my mind, and here I am chanting Hare Krishna at the same time. Just put the chanting down. Or I just won't take it so seriously. But no, if we more seriously take to the chanting, that's the victory in spite of all the impediments. So please remember, you can't battle your mind face to face. Don't try to battle your mind directly. Just take more shelter of Krishna by taking more shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra. And then indeed you'll start to taste that wonderful realization that, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, there's nothing more to be had in all parts of the universe other than chanting Hare Krishna. To actually experience that, that is the wonder of life. So any questions? Yes?
Sometimes when I chant in the morning, in japa time, I try to express myself. I like to chant sometimes very loudly, but I feel not so much loud. I don't think so that I'm disturbed if somebody around. But sometimes when I want to put some feeling there, I feel a little bit shame, I don't know, I feel a little bit, this is what you think, some kind of sahajya or some kind of. And I don't try to put heart in my chanting, but I really sometimes really feel that if I put more feeling into my chanting, I'll be much more happy. But really I feel a little bit, what these other people think about me. So how I can...
The main yoga instruction in calling out Krishna's name is to do it like a child calling for mother. You're a brahmachari, so you won't experience that. You're over 50, so looks like you missed that boat. So, but I'm sure you've heard of a child screaming for mother. Not to say you should scream while you're chanting, but that attitude of complete dependency. The child knows only mother can save me. That's why mothers like to be mothers, because they feel that complete dependency of another living entity upon them. Yesterday in Laguna Beach we were talking about Mother Yashoda and child Krishna, and how Mother Yashoda looked in Krishna's mouth. Although she saw the most amazing things, she saw the whole universe in his mouth. At the end she just concluded, he's my child, I have to protect him. So that complete dependency that the child has on the mother, very important in psychological development, that the child has that relationship with the mother. Mothers play a very important role. I know much talk goes on sometimes, different parts of the world to different degrees, that men can also play a role in child raising. So not only should the woman be able to take off from work to raise a child, but also the man should too. That's nice that fathers want to take an interest in raising their children, but still there's nothing that can compare to a mother's nurturing. There's no equality. A man can't do it. A man cannot nurture a child as a mother can. Not to say that fathers don't have a role, but especially in the early years, it's mother that's everything in terms of her warmth. Men just can't pick up a child and just pour their hearts in and reciprocate with the child's complete dependency. It's just not a man's thing. So that's the lady's superiority. So that's how we should chant Hare Krishna, just like a child takes shelter of mother. Anything else?
Never work for years chanting. The mind going more far away.
What was the first thing you said?
Numbers years. Almost 26
The longest years. The longer you chant, in terms of years, being in Krishna consciousness.
The longer you chant, what happens?
The mind goes all the way big.
Goes all the way where?
Big.
It's not about how many years we have chanted, it's about the quality of our spiritual practice. So it's not about time. It's about the quality of our relationship with chanting. And we'll never think that we're chanting so nicely. A devotee who's making advancement toward tasting Hare Krishna mantra never feels, oh, now I've got it down. Now things are really going good. You feel yourself more and more helpless. And more you have the experience that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, your consciousness is at its best. In other words, you stop trying to fight your mind directly. For so many years, we're going to be amazed at how treacherous our mind is. Just when we think we've got it under control. Just when we think we've got it all figured out. And then, after a while, we'll come to the conclusion, I can't fight with my mind directly. I have to take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra. That's good. That's spiritual advancement. Anything else? Someone raise their hand? Yes.
In chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, is it the words, the Hare Krishna and Rama, those words, that the sound of them that gives the mind a moment of rest so that you can see the divine, the natural connection that you have with Krishna? Is it the sound of the words? And the other thing I wanted to ask was that in the Gita they talk about how...
Okay, one thing at a time.
Okay.
What was the first one?
Well, is it the sound of the words Hare Krishna and Rama that vibrate or make the mind quiet long enough?
Yes. It's not ordinary sound. So, the practice of chanting Hare Krishna means associating with that extraordinary sound vibration.
And the other thing I wanted to ask was that in the Bhagavad Gita they talk about how goal is to transcend the cycle of birth and death. And between birth and death, the joys of life can be many and varied, and the idea of foregoing rebirth and aspiring to not being reborn is. I was wondering about that.
Actually, for the mature Bhakti Yoga practitioner, for the mature Krishna conscious person, he or she doesn't even worry whether or not they're going to take birth again, because the mature Bhakti Yoga practitioner is completely satisfied just by a chance to engage in divine service to Krishna. It doesn't matter whether he or she takes birth again or doesn't, because that divine connection is the ultimate experience, whether you're in this world or out of this world. So, regardless of whatever your future location is, if you have mastered that connection to Krishna, that's the main thing. Everything else fades into the background. Even liberation from material existence fades into the background. It's just not so important. That is the power of pure love. Just like people, they cherish musicians who can just make everything else fade into the background and then focus the audience's mind on somewhere else and give them a deep experience. So the power of pure love, the love supreme, is so intense that it makes even the benefits of becoming liberated from material existence look very inconsequent. It makes even mystic powers look childish.
You would think some people would love to come back and be reborn many times. That's the idea, to enjoy the beauty of the world and the sky and beautiful things that here in the material world.
But everything has gradations. Is what you see on Earth, is that the full extent of the cosmos? Just like even on the Earth planet, there are different residences. You could be born in North Korea.
Thanks.
Right. So, the yoga texts explain that there's life on every planet, whether you can see it or not, and there are planets even in this material cosmos that make the standard of living makes Earth look like a slum. You just have to have the proper karma to inhabit these realms. Human beings today are so caught up in being geocentric that the Earth is the center. Life is only on Earth. Meanwhile, statistics show that the vast majority of Americans, they believe in extraterrestrial life. They think the government's covering up on UFOs and life on other planets, and Gallup polls show that. But they don't know what to do with such intuitions because they don't have the knowledge base, how to handle that. So basically, Earth is a third-class planet. There's worse areas of the universe. There are worse neighborhoods in the universe. In the yoga text, earth is described as it's in the middle. It's not so great, it's not so bad. Most people don't realize that the whole yoga system has no earthly origin and has no earthly goal. Those physical exercises, the asanas, yoga postures, and the breathing exercises, the pranayama, those are elements taken out of a complete system that's meant to take you out of this world. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, you're reading Bhagavad Gita, and the first verse of the 4th chapter, Krishna says, I've spoken this ancient knowledge of yoga millions of years ago to the chief executive of the Sun Planet. So what are you going to say about that? Who can live on the Sun Planet? How is it possible that Krishna spoke this 40 millions upon millions of years ago to the chief executive of the Sun Planet? Why should the Sun Planet have a chief executive? Chief executives should only exist in Washington, D.C. We can vote them in when they promise us so many things and vote them out when we get tired of them, but how do you get rid of the chief executive of the Sun Planet? So the yoga system is otherworldly in origin and otherworldly in goal. People have that intuition that we don't live in a geocentric universe, but they don't have the knowledge how to follow through. In the same way, the Hare Krishna mantra, it has no earth origins, and it doesn't have a life on earth as its goal. It's much bigger than that. So this planet is very insignificant. It's like a speck of dust. Just like you said, North Korea, no way. Well, they're residents of planets where the living standards are much higher, and they would say the same thing about Earth. No way. Very fragile bodies of gross matter. They get wounded and hurt so easily. Very limited intelligence people on Earth have. Their minds are always out of control. The only time they get peace is when they get stoned. Who wants to live there? People need to become aware of what's really going on in the cosmos and beyond. So they've taken two elements of the entire yoga system, physical postures and breathing exercises, extracted them from the whole system and remain comfortably geocentric, when actually the whole system doesn't originate from Earth and is not meant to have Earth existence as its goal. I thought to start investigating this theme more and even perhaps publishing a book about it. Yoga out of this world. The interplanetary implications of yoga. And put in the book only the most authorized or credible or authenticated information about extraterrestrials, UFOs, this, that, the other. so that people can actually see that things are going on, but no one knows how to face those realities. Like, how much does the government really know? Did you know that the top French military leaders a few years ago went on record to say that they have pored over all reports of extraterrestrial contact, so-called UFOs, and in 95% of the cases, you can see that it's unreliable, but there's 5% that's undeniable. And they were saying that pressure should be put on the U.S. government to release all this information. These are the top military leaders of France, not a third world country. So I'm going to try to tie all that in to the yoga and meditation system. It'll be a challenge. Because generally people think, oh, UFOs, aliens, oh, that's way out there. Well, just look at human beings today. They're definitely way out there. What other species is there on Earth that destroys its own habitat? Isn't that way out there?
Could I ask one more question?
Sure. You want to come back down to Earth? Huh?
Yeah. It's pretty basic. I was reading somewhere where they said that the oldest musical instrument was the bamboo flute. And some people say the oldest musical instrument is a drum. You know, that millions of years ago people, you know, hit a hollow log and got some kind of pleasure out of hearing the sound of the drum. But then I just read, you know, people have built shelters out of bamboo since time immemorial, and that birds pecking holes in bamboo and the wind blowing made a flute sound, and it didn't take long, millions of years ago, for the flute to be the earliest musical instrument. And I wanted to ask, I haven't really read about it, but you always see the images of Krishna playing the flute, and what to see, and I imagine that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Ever?
And I haven't read that yet.
Actually, since you brought that point up, let's get really esoteric now.
Yeah.
The sound of the Hare Krishna mantra is actually the sound of Krishna's flute.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yes, yes. Do you know why Krishna always carries a flute?
Why? That's what I was asking. That's correct.
Why?
Yeah.
To show you that he's all play and no work. To show you that he never works for his pleasure. So he always carries a flute.
Yeah.
And he's, by the sound of the flute, he's inviting you. Come join me. Why are you struggling in material existence? Trying to enjoy gross and subtle matter.
That's great.
So the sound of the Hare Krishna mantra is the sound of Krishna's flute. That's what we're trying to hear. All right. Shall we do some chanting, or is it too late? Where's Suresh Krishna?
You can do some chanting.
All right. Let's do some quick chanting, and then we'll take prasad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Hare